Good afternoon and good morning. My name is Ana Rojas, and it is a pleasure for me to welcome you to Women's in African Power Increasing Connection series. I want to thank the participants for joining the panel and for the panelists for joining today. We are very pleased to have two powerhouse women as our speakers of today, and we're very much looking forward to hearing about their experiences in positive leadership, which is a topic that we see has gathered a lot of attention from you. Before we give the floor to our marvelous panelists, I want to run you through the series of virtual housekeeping matters. First, if you've tuned in, you've realized that you are muted, and this is just to avoid disturbances through the webinar. This does not mean at any moment that you should refrain from interacting. Quite the opposite. As you can see on the screen of your computer, you will see a chat function in the panel box for the GoTo platform. So we want to encourage you to please join in and send in your comments throughout the webinar so that we can post them to our panelists towards the end of the conversation. My colleague Jamie Wen will be supporting the technical aspects of the webinar, so please reach out to her if you have any questions on the webinar. She would also be collecting, as I said, the questions that or comments that you would have throughout the conversation, and afterwards we will make them available to our panelists to answer your questions. One of the questions that we normally receive is whether or not the webinar will be available afterwards. And indeed, we are recording this webinar, and though it takes us a couple of hours to have everything live, we will be able to make the documents available and the recording available for you. So please stay in tune. And now I would like to begin with a little bit of introduction about Women in African Power Network. If you've joined, chances are you know us already, but if you don't, just a kindly reminder that the network is able to convene established and emerging female leaders working in the African energy sector. And so far we have more than 700 members from 20 plus African countries. And as a reminder also that we're very thankful to Power Africa for the support that they provide to the network. Increasing connections has been created in order to increase knowledge sharing and building professional skills. And today we are gathered here on this electronic platform to discuss about positive leadership as part of this career development path. And we are very pleased to have Edith Wanjohi, who is a gender specialist for the Southern African Energy Program and Director of Pearl Development Consulting. We also have Nyonkabi Njuguna, who's the Director of E+L Oil and Gas and the CEO of E+L Real Estate Development Consultants. After we hear from both of them, first their presentation about themselves and their approaches to their careers. We will be following with an interview and then a series of questions and answers from you. Before I give the floor to our first panelist, just a reminder of why positive leadership is important. It supports or improves productivity in the workplace. It improves innovation and creativity, but also a positive leader is someone whose actions inspire others to become better, to enjoy their work. And positive leaders, they do this by either enabling trust, creating trust and a safe environment for peers and employees to flourish, by focusing on the strengths of their peers and relying on those, and also by supporting others to find meaning in their day-to-day work. So without further ado, and as we have two amazing panelists today, I would like to invite the first of them to the floor. So it's my pleasure to present to you Ms. Edith Wanjohi. And Jamie, if we could give Edith the possibility to share her screen.
Good afternoon and good morning to the attendees and everyone on air. My name is Edith Wanjohi.
Hi, Edith. We can see you and hear you clearly.
Thank you. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity of giving you a brief overview about myself at this point of time and at this webinar. As you've heard and seen, my name is Edith Wanjohi, and I am, okay, great. I am a human rights lawyer and have been working in the international development institutions for over 17, 18 years. I'm also a leadership development practitioner and a social entrepreneur. My role has basically been working in different institutions, development corporates, and the UN agencies, have worked in over 15 different countries. I've been a regional legal practitioner and gender specialist in the region of Eastern and Southern Africa for over 15 years. I'm currently the gender specialist at the South African Energy Program, and my role basically is having to work around gender-sensitive policies for energy utilities and energy regulators in Southern Africa, and also supporting the program, which is a Power Africa program, the Southern African Energy Program. I am also an entrepreneur. I am the founder of Power Development Consulting, which our role is to equip, empower, encourage women, youth, and adolescent girls to achieve their full potential. I work with institutions to unpack complex social and development issues, and our role is to develop customized, measurable, cost-effective, practical solutions. Under the Leadership Development Program, I've developed several programs. Some of them is Women Leadership Program. Others are the Connection Economy. I've developed a program called Let's Go. I've developed a program called Launchpad. And they all focus on women and adolescent boys and girls to ensure that they get the life skills that they need to work both in their life and at work. I've also done quite a bit of publications and research. I was one of the most fundamental and instrumental lead in publications of the first ever Because I'm a Girl project report, Africa Reports. Girls Access and Retention and Completion, you can get them in www.planinternational.org. I've also worked with the trade sector, where I have done some publications on how trade liberalization has impacted in both developing countries. You can get them on www.igtn.org. I've also developed a CSO training manual for UNDP, gender self-assessment for Plan and other institutions. I have been requested, or rather I've spoken in quite a number of international, regional, and national conferences and workshops, to name a few. Last year at the Regional Energy Regulation Association, RERA, Women Economic Forum, Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Canon Collins. I've been very instrumental to ensuring that the Girl Day of 11th October was actually adopted by the UN. I've worked extensively with the Commission on Social or Status of Women and many others. I hold a master's in law, a bachelor in law, a bachelor in social legislation, a diploma in gender development. I'm a certified leadership facilitator and a diploma in United Nations Studies. I'm currently writing a book and doing my doctorate. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Edith. I think now it's clear that I was not making this up as to saying that we have two amazing panelists for today. And as I thank you, I want to now take the opportunity to invite our second brilliant and powerful woman, Yonkabi Nyuguna. And Jamie, if we could also allow Yonkabi to share her screen. Thank you. Yonkabi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. Warm greetings to everyone who is on air from Kenya, Nairobi. Thank you so much for coming for the webinar and listening. Well, thank you so much for being on air.
Dear Yonkabi, we seem to have lost your
leadership
sound.
Strengths that I can.
Oh,
sorry, Anna? Yes?
We lost you immediately after that you said hello to everyone. I wonder if you could start your presentation again. I'm so terribly sorry.
That's fine. Do you want me to, can you see it? Is it the one that you wanted?
Yes, we can see your presentation, but we had lost sound. So if you could start.
I see. That's fine. That's fine. Okay,
thank you.
So thank you, Anna. Okay, thank you, Anna. Warm greetings to everyone on air. Thank you for listening in. Like I said, I'm the group director of E+L. We have a division called E+L Oil and Gas. We've been operational for the last 10 years. I'm also CEO of the Real Estate Development Consultants E+L. It's been operational for the last 7 years. And we develop student housing. In the oil and gas sector, we specialize in strategy, training, development of TVET curriculum for national governments, and we also work with partners who require credible connections in the East African market in the energy sector. The panel, Anna and her colleagues asked me to talk about my leadership strengths as we're talking about positive leadership. And one of my first one is actually faith. And I believe that if you don't have faith in anything, you kind of keep losing your focus and not understanding where you're going, and you're not confident enough. So I think one of my biggest strengths, I must say, is faith. And I must include, it's called faith in God. My second leadership strength would be strong communication. I would imagine I'm a good communicator. I easily persuade and influence, and I will probably be able to give a little bit more detail when we start speaking during the interview sessions on how I've been able to use communication skills to influence in any given situation, whether you're employed in the energy sector or you are employed yourself. It's always good to know that 75% of the time when you're communicating, it's relational. So soft skills are a big deal, especially communication and listening. My third strength, I would say, is passion and commitment. And the reason I say that is because if you're not passionate about what you're doing and you're not committed, you find that you're not really giving your all. And when you're not committed, people tend to not give you a lot of respect. And you don't build trust in the community, in the industry, in the sector, or in the business. My fourth strength, I would say, is mental toughness. And what I mean by mental toughness is not, whenever an issue comes to you, you don't melt. It's like you remain okay, so I would probably give it, say, like if you're like coffee. When you boil coffee to its highest, it actually smells very good. It brings out a very good aroma. You don't become soft like a carrot and cage in. So mental toughness is really whatever is thrown at you, you're able to handle it without being very emotive. And even if you're emotive, you are self-aware and you quickly shift to a place where you don't get overwhelmed by issues. I would say the fifth strength would be collegiality. And collegiality, I mean, being able to work with people, fitting into a situation, whether it suits you or not, being aware of diversity, different cultures. So I would say in summary that my top leadership strengths are the 5. And I'll just go to the next slide. So how positive leadership has worked for me is we've been able to achieve our strategic business objectives, and we've achieved. Sorry, my apologies. We've achieved our targets of projects much more efficiently because you keep selling your vision to the team. Like I commented about communication. Communication is really being able to sell your vision to the team. The other thing is that we are in energy. It's very complicated because everything is so technical, and across the value chain, you need to understand what it is that you're doing. But if you don't have the technical expertise, it's very important that as a leader, you're able to aggregate teams and the right teams. Sometimes the teams can be very complex. Team dynamics can also be very complicated. But you have to have the ability to manage these complex teams, to aggregate the right teams, to change things if they're not working, very quickly. And so because of my ability to influence and persuade, we've been able to put together about 50 subject matter experts across the energy value chain that we call upon every time we have a project that needs to be run, whether quickly or long term. I guess the last one is exceptional communication skills and able to work in a dynamic, fast-paced, diverse environment, and which I've already commented. Positive leadership really, ultimately, it's how you communicate, how you connect, how you influence people. Every day, daily, you have to be able to inspire people. And for me, communication is part of inspiring. Sometimes, they say body language is also part of inspiration, but as we go along the, webinar, we'll be able to sort of like delve a little bit more on what that means. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Yunkabi, and thank you for bringing us right into the core of the conversation. I appreciate that. Jamie, if you could allow me, yes, thank you very much. Because at this point, when we want to start this more of a conversation setting, I would like to the audience to at least be able to see both of our speakers, and now that is possible. So Yunkabi, as I was saying, thank you very much for bringing us not only to get to know you a little bit better, but also for sharing your strengths and how positive leadership has worked for you. And I want to build on that to ask now, Edith, if you can comment from your perspective also on what are your core personal values, and link those to what positive leadership means to you.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Yunkabi, for that elaborate introduction of yourself. My core values is 1, trust. And I believe if there is trust in an environment, at work, and anywhere, then you're able to achieve your full potential. Trust has to be built because you can't buy trust. You have to build trust. You have to work with people to trust them to be able to trust you back. So for me, trust is very, very important. My second is, as Nyokabi said, communication. It is always important to communicate. And I keep on saying that people are not angels to know what is in your head. And if you do not communicate, then there'll be broken understanding that people need to know. You need to communicate to know and to let people to know what you are saying or what you need to be done. So in a setup of work and working with people, we need to be effective communicators. And if you don't effectively communicate, whether written, verbal, and non-verbal communication, then people pick cues that are necessary and that can probably cause some kind of confusion in an institution that was unnecessary. So it's important to either communicate effectively written, verbal, and also the non-verbal cues, especially if you're in meetings, that are quite critical. My third is authenticity. If you're not authentic, then there will be, again, confusion. People will not know whether cold, hot, in between. You need to be authentic. And authenticity is being able to even let your guard loose, being able to step in and step out and have people understand who you are without wearing any mask. Dropping off that mask, you have actually to make sure that you are very, very authentic. How say my other thing, it is I believe in being smart, hardworking. You have to show that and to prove beyond reasonable doubt what you know. And I call it, when you get to know that you're hardworking, you're smart, and dependable, when people can depend on you, in the settings of work, whether in consulting, whether employed, dependability is quite critical. We need to know that we can depend on you. We need to know that as an employer, I can depend on you. As a contractor, I can depend on you. So dependability is something that is quite critical. So I would say those are quite 5 values that how bring when we talk about the leadership. There are so many others, but those 4 are key to making and becoming an effective leader, a positive leader in an institution, or even self-leadership within yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. And I want to now. I do have a question that is for the both of you. As I have you on the mic, I'll post it first to Edith, but Yonkabi, I'll ask you to join in afterwards. From your perspective, what are the benefits of leading in a positive manner? What do you see as the difference?
When you lead in a positive manner, I always use the analogy of stories. It's about having to seek to enlarge the pie instead of dividing it into parts that result in winners and losers. In an institution, if you have to divide winners and losers, then you lose the focus. It is important to have that pie where the bigger pie will make everyone win, no division of the pie. You need to let people get to feel appreciated. You have to create an enabling environment that people will achieve their full potential. You have to create a safe environment where people will be drawn into a circle of trust. So for me, it is quite critical to lead in a positive way. You need to draw people to be able to trust you. And we see when you throw the pie and say, let us share the pie, take out every staff member ability and appreciate what they can do. And when you're able actually to stay fixed, I mean to be fixed and stay actually flexible at the same time, without losing the end result and the goal. So for me, it is being able to let your staff members trust you, being able on the other side to give it back to them to say, look here, we are creating a safe space here. This is safe space where we will allow you to thrive and achieve your full potential and flourish in what we have to achieve for everlasting levels of effectiveness. That's the way I work, and it's the way I always promote to be a positive leader.
Perfect. And Yonkavi, if I could perhaps encourage you to share your thoughts on what are the benefits of leading in a positive manner, and how do you experience that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, I lost you there for a moment. So I have no idea where we're at.
Okay, apologies. No, I was just asking if you could share with us your reflections on the benefits of leading in a positive manner. And while perhaps you think about it, I just encourage our audience to send their own questions on positive leadership and the examples or what they can learn from you. Yes.
So would that question be the same as what is positive leadership to me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So I think the benefits of leading in a positive manner are immense, just like Edith has said. I think trust is developed very quickly. For me, I think it's more because everyone is human. When they walk into the business, they expect some level of understanding of where the business is headed and what we need to do. What's a vision? You know, what's a stretch goal of the company or whatever it is, if it's a project. The personal, at a personal level, I think the self-satisfaction or the contentment that comes along with the benefits of leading in a positive manner for everyone, from the top leadership to the management, to the supervisory teams, to the person that would probably be sweeping the floor. Because if I'm not satisfied, I'm very edgy. And if I don't feel good about myself, that I did a good job, then I tend to feel like I'm not appreciated. I have a very low self-esteem. So I think for me, the benefits of leading in a positive manner is self-satisfaction for everybody, contentment, and peace. And I'm not saying peace in a way that everyone is so peaceful and sleeping. No, no, no. What I mean is that when I'm doing my work, I know at the back of my mind that I'm appreciated, or I'm able to do my work, whether it's a fast-paced environment, whether it's an easy environment, whether I am being, driven urgently to finish a project. I'm at peace, but my energy levels kick all the time. So I think that's part of the positive at a personal level. That's what I would say. At an organizational level, I will talk about teamwork. You find the benefits of leading in a positive manner. People tend to trust one another, work together better, have collegiality. They are more creative, and they don't wait for you to give instructions. There's more shared interest because perhaps you did a project that was done well, and so everybody's excited and you're celebrating. And there's a lot of comradeship, meaning that people tend to support one another when they're doing the work. And of course, earlier I talked about the strategic and business objectives being achieved. If it's targets you had set, whether it's for a project, whether it's timelines, whether it's a company achieving its targets for the year, it's done more efficiently. I think in a nutshell, if I said, if I kind of covered what the benefits of leading in a positive manner would be, I think it would be from a positive, from a personal level, and also from an organizational level. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. And when you started, your reflections and in this round of questions, you spoke about trust. And I wonder if you could also reflect a little bit on how you promote a safe environment where people can actually feel trusted and they can, engage with each other and just flourish and grow?
Thank you, Anna. Promoting a safe environment is not a one fit all for every organization. So I'll probably just speak about what works for me and what works for my teams. We have a small dynamic team, but when we go into projects, we can have as many as 50 or 30 team members. One of the things that I've noticed when you want to create a safe environment, again, promote your vision. When you keep a clear vision of where the organization is going or the project in front of the people on a daily basis, people tend to feel safe because they know where they're headed. When people don't have a vision, you find that, the good book says you perish. Your people will perish for lack of knowledge or a vision. But when you write it down and people see it on the walls, if it's a project vision, if it's a company vision, for me, that really works. And then communicate clearly. That builds trust and that creates a safe environment. Let people give you feedback, give feedback as well. I also realized, after a long time, that you need to listen actively. We usually listen, but we don't listen actively. And when you listen actively, it means that you are, your body language tells the person that you're listening to or the group that's that's talking to you that you're listening actively. And obviously, it will either be nodding or saying, okay, I hear you. Let every group member talk, and then you can talk. Because part of leadership is leading from the back, so that you don't necessarily have to have everybody follow you, but you can allow them to speak first, and then you reiterate their points, and then you come to a convergence. So I think for me, listening is very important. And then manage priorities. Every organization, has so many things going on, many priorities. And one of the challenges we've had before when we're having so many projects is actually managing priorities. When you manage priorities, people feel safe because you can give them 10 tasks to do, and probably they're not as urgent or important. So managing priorities, I've seen, is very important. Delegating tasks, again, when you want your team members to feel safe, delegate tasks, but only delegate to their strengths. Don't give somebody something they can't do unless you have a long-term project and they're going to be, I'm looking for the word, and they're going to be mentored or, be mentored, yes, by somebody else in the group who knows more. And what you're trying to do is rolling over the project role or responsibilities to them, maybe over a period of 4-6 months or 2 months, regardless. So I think delegating tasks is important. Motivating change. Sometimes you find the things you agreed on are not working. Perhaps it could even be the mission statement, because maybe by the time you grew, like when we started, we already had ours, but when we became bigger, perhaps it didn't make sense to everyone. So when you have people think, how do we motivate change in the business? Are we in the right path? Remember, we talked about the vision. So I think for me, motivating change means either at a company level or even at a personal level, because a lot of people are fixated on the way they do things. They do not roll with the situation or roll with the times or the season. So you motivate change at personal levels and at company levels by encouraging people to speak out or be creative. Another thing that I've realized that creates safety is generating urgency. When people are complacent in an organization, you find they become bored, they are complacent, they are not motivated, they're not inspired, there's no urgency. And so everybody's dragging their feet, having a cup of tea, gossiping, being on internet. But when you generate urgency for projects, for targets, then people feel energized and they're willing to, be influenced by your persuasion skills to deliver on targets. And the last one, of course, is managing risks. If you can't manage risks, whether it's political risks within the organization or externally, whatever risks that are prone to your business, you need to show your team that you can manage the risks. Even if you can't manage the risks, at least you can alleviate the pains of whatever risks that you're going through, whether it's financial, or environment, whichever risks that we're talking about within either a project or the organization, then it works. I think for me, those are the few areas that I would say would create a safe environment.
Thank you. And Kabi, I'm so glad that we're recording this conversation, because you've touched upon so many different topics that resonate so much with daily life. And I'm pretty sure that the audience, as well as I, have been either identifying moments in which we've had leaders that are actually doing what you described, or quite the opposite. So it's been amazing listening to you. And I'm sure our audience is looking into that. So I hope that they continue sending questions on to dig into the conversation. Edith, I want to ask you something slightly different from safe environments, but more thinking about identifying a positive purpose for the team. I wonder if you could reflect a little with us on how you do that, how you support a team to come up with a purpose.
Thanks so much, Anna. How do we identify a positive purpose for a team? Again, I will probably echo a lot with what Nyokabi has said. First of all, to identify a positive purpose for a team is to get to first understand again, if it is a project, like I'm working on a project, or I work on project most of the time, is what is it that we want to do in this project? Again, it goes back to the vision of the team. Do the team actually understand what the vision of this project is or program is? Then another positive purpose for the team is to get them to understand what are the tools that they need to actually make sure that they become productive and they work around and actually effectively work on the team and work on the project and finish the project. The other thing I would say, it is actually looking at the teamwork and asking what motivates this team. For example, in most of the projects that we work on programs, you find you're having different people coming from different places. Again, I'll echo what Nyokabi said, what is your strength? Because the strength of each and every person is very different. I may bring a legal background, development background, and I may not actually have the attention to detail with probably the financial bit of it. So how do I identify the strength that each team member brings in? And the way I work around this is to say, look here is a team, the team has come together. What are you strong in doing? And how can you bring your different skill sets into the program or into the project? So once you identify the strengths, the skill sets, then you identify what is the vision of this program, and also having to identify the timeline of the project. Because if you have to have a positive purpose for my team, I need to know, how are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? Where are we going to do this? So the different whys, the why, the how, the when, the why, is quite critical for the teams to get to understand that this is the purpose why we are here. There's something else that is usually forgotten when we bring humans and not robots into the project. The ethical values and the use of human growth mindset. We are all always where we are because we want to grow. And if I am in a program or project and I am just there because I want to earn money, then there is something very wrong. We need to identify that positive purpose and say, what is your growth line like? I know this is not very common because most of the time we are so pushed with pressure. We want to complete, the client wants this, but that's the first thing I look at and say, if you're part of my team, what is your purpose? How can I actually ensure you grow with me? As we finish the project and work on the project, how can we use your skill for both the client and for your growth? So I have to identify that and say the purpose, and the way to motivate my team with purpose is getting to know, why are you in my team? What do you want to get from my team? What do you want to get from this project? So the why, and how do you want to achieve your full potential in this project? So once you engage your teams with that, they feel motivated, they feel accepted, they feel that actually they are valued. And that's why it is quite critical to have a team that feels that they are staying grounded in a project or program, in ethical values, and also using a human growth mindset. And that's how I identify that to get to know. Once I get to know what my team needs, and this is evolving over time as the program goes, shift them around from the strengths that Nyokabi spoke about and say, you started the team actually wanting to do communication, but I've actually identified a strength that you're actually very good in numbers. And you find constantly teams will unleash and say, I actually have some accounting background. And that's when you get to know, you step in and pick the skill set that they have and use this skill set within the program or project as they keep on evolving, and constantly acknowledging what they are doing. We are mostly of the time in a rat race chasing for program, but we need to have that actually acknowledgement of the small things that our teams do, because at the end of the day, they are working. And when you get acknowledged, always go back to the team and acknowledge them for contributing. So to me, that is very critical, to make sure that the purpose of my team is collective and actually is well articulated within the strength that they have, the purpose that they have, the skill set that they have, and the objective of the program of the client. Thank you.
Thanks, Edith. And I'm afraid this conversation is so rich and interesting that we're coming close to the hour. But I still want to include a couple of questions. So I'm just going to continue, of course, but perhaps from now on, I'll ask both of you to keep your answers slightly short. And I also want to build on one of the things that Edith, you were saying just now. You were talking about growth. And growth comes, of course, from what you were explaining, from this communication, from giving in and trying out. But there's also something very interesting, which is we grow through feedback. And Nyokabi, I wanted to ask you about feedback. How do you manage giving feedback in a positive manner so that it actually encourages your peers to continue their work? And also, how do you respond to feedback when you're in a leadership position so that it's actually perceived as accepted?
Okay, thanks, Anna, but I keep losing you. So could you ask the question again?
Of course, I'm so sorry about the connectivity issues.
Yeah, I think there's a problem. I don't know whether it's in its connectivity, but it's okay. Please ask the question again. I'll answer it quickly.
So the question is, if you can tell us how to provide feedback to others and how to respond to feedback from others so that it still fits into this positive leadership and building of people's strengths?
So I've had bits and bits of it. How do you receive and respond to feedback from others? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, particularly how you give feedback. Yes.
Oh, I see. I get that. So I think one of the things that when I was doing my writing down of this question, the one thing that I want to say from the beginning is that leadership is not about you, but it's a service to the community, to the company, to your family. Leadership is everywhere, and you can be a leader in spite of the title. And as a leader, you must be able to inspire, listen, and learn. And I think for me, when you want to receive feedback, okay, so let me say in our case, whenever I want to get feedback, whether it's about how I'm leading on a particular project or on a daily basis, we usually have fortnight meetings. And when the meetings are held, people can either have written before, it's an hour meeting, it's an hour very early in the morning meeting. So people will either have written down their feedback from the 2 weeks, or they can talk about it on of course, unless it's personal, then they will go to HR, the human resource. But the way I receive feedback is by getting people to, during that meeting, to talk, or do it in advance on an email. Maybe you don't want to give your feedback during the group meeting. You can give your feedback personally. It's an open door policy. Maybe you don't want to give me directly the feedback. You want to give it to your supervisor or your manager. And of course, we make sure that it's not incriminative. So if you feel that the feedback that you're giving may be sensitive, or you want to make sure that somebody else knows, we usually encourage that you copy in your supervisor, so that the conversation is a little bit more open. And I don't mean open to many people. I just mean that the conversation has somebody else who's got a listening ear. The way I respond to feedback as a leader is by making sure that when people talk, I don't get personal and I don't get emotive, because it's very easy for you to get personal and to get emotive, because somebody can phrase feedback in a way that sounds like it's criticizing. And sometimes you can't control the way people ask questions. You can say, yes, it's going to be respectful. But mostly when it comes to either it's the way you communicate to somebody, or maybe you're a bit aggressive during a project, then that is usually will be sorted at during the group meeting. If it's something that's totally sensitive, then we do it on a one-on-one, or we do it when the supervisor is there. The way I respond to feedback is, like I said before, leadership is not about me. It's really about service. And a group leader or the CEO or any leader knows very well, any successful leader knows that it's about service, it's not about themselves, and it's about fulfilling a vision. So I try as much as I can to keep to the vision of the project or the company while I'm giving back feedback or responding to any queries. Most of the time you'll find feedback would be based on technicalities of a project, but when they become soft issues, and as soft issues I mean by either somebody didn't communicate well, or they gave the wrong impression, or gave some feedback that wasn't correct, or maybe the supervisor is unable to handle a matter that's beyond himself or herself, then that becomes, we move that off the group and we take it now on one-on-one or with the supervisor and the person that was affected. But mostly you find the feedback would be mainly, how did we perform on this? Why couldn't we meet the targets? What is happening in the market? What's the environment looking like? The energy sector can be very complex and it's very confusing. And in where we are, we're in the upstream sector, it's a project can take forever to come through. And so when you're working with a business development manager or director, you need to be careful not to aggregate them too much. And at that point, then you agree on daily, whether it's daily calls or daily follow-ups, or whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly. What is that project looking like? Who are the decision makers? So you really sort of like try and make sure that you're supporting your team. If it's business development, if it's the internal function or leaders, then you support them appropriately. Where you don't have enough capacity, you invite in a consultant. And sometimes you find that when you have a consultant or somebody, an advisor, because we have a board of advisors, and it's actually an ad hoc one, it's an informal one, where we call upon energy sector experts to sort of like give us some feedback on how we could deal with the situation. Then you find that it works, and it helps when you're running a company where people expect you have the vision, because once you lose your vision, then you lose your people. Thanks.
And the way that you finish that sentence is throughout the clarity of both of you with regards to leadership has been amazing. But I really like how you phrase the fact that if you lose your vision, you lose your people. Thanks. We still have a little bit of time, and I still want to put a question to each. So Edith, I would like to ask you, and if I listen to you and to you, Gabby, I mean, you take leadership and you take this approach to understanding, your peers and your employees, and trying to make the best out of them and the situations that you're into. But let's assume that there is someone who's not as fortunate to be surrounded with a manager with the characteristics that the two of you are discussing. What would be your advice to someone who's in a situation in which, there is not that encouragement or that approach into strengths, or that search for meaning in the day-to-day? What do you think someone in such a situation could do?
Okay, can I go? First, thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Actually, I would say from experiences, and Yokabi would probably say the same, in the real world, the work environment is what you have actually just said it is. In the real world, most of the institutions are not fortunate to have positive leaders. And for somebody who is in that kind of a situation, what I can say is to ask this question: what do you want in the environment that you're in? Why do you want what you want in the environment that you're in? And how do you want it? If you're getting in an institution, I believe if we work, Kabi and I work on programs, teams are constantly changing. We're constantly working with different clients as well. And for those that are in those probably situations that they are in, is first to task, why am I here? And what do I want to achieve here? When do I want, if the environment is not conducive, how do I work around either turning around and saying, look here, let's have a conversation? I believe sometimes people behave, or leaders behave the way they behave because they're not emotionally intelligent. Sometimes they're not even aware that they're doing what they're doing. I'm somebody who don't believe in quitting too quick, because I believe there's something to learn and get from different environments. It is good for you to first engage and get to identify what is the issue are you struggling with. 2 things, 3 things. Is it an organizational issue? Is it a technical issue? Or is it a leadership personal issue? When I talk about organizational issue, is can the organization actually be able to give me what I want to grow my career? Because we are where we are because we want to grow our careers. We are where we are because we also want to earn money. We can't deny that. So if this organization cannot give me what I want to grow myself and grow my career, then I need to start thinking and say, how long can I be in this institution that is not allowing me to grow? And there are two alternatives. Is either to have a discussion from an organization level and say, look here, these are my skill sets. I feel I'm misplaced in this project. I believe I have a lot to offer in this project. And you may be surprised. You can be moved around within the institution to achieve your full potential. If it's a technical issue where, again, you're probably misplaced with what you're supposed to do and your skill sets, then have that conversation to say, look here, this is my skill set. I've been in this program or project for this long. I've earned this skill set. I believe I can add value. I believe, as I said from the beginning, a real leader knows that leadership is not fixed, but is flexible, and at the same time never staying from what we believe in or the vision, as Nyokabi has been saying. Then if it's a personal thing, there's something we call reflection. Why am I not gaining what I wanted or I want to get from this kind of a project or institution? You need to have those conversations with either yourself, your mentor, your mentee, and find yourself. And if you really feel that you can't cope with that within then where you are, then I'll say it's the time for you to move forward and get something else to do. But you have to look at those three issues of organizational, technical, and personal. If you're able to identify at least 1, 2 of those and you work around discussing them, I say the worst somebody can tell me is no, you're not going to shoot me. But because we find we work in an environment where people are not self-aware of what is happening around them, they neglect these more soft issues, as Nyokabi said, which are also quite critical apart from the big vision of the company and the deliverables that we have to be. So you need to look for that juncture where you can find that human moment and discuss some of those things, but also speak to somebody first and get to understand how to work around that. Then if all this fail, I would say, then you can move on and find something else to do. But also my warning is every institution is complex. We need to get to the point that we understand institutions that we are working with and look for ways of the evolving issues that keep on coming up. Be self-aware as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We are running out of time, but I don't want to close without asking Nyokabi this final question. I just want to, and I hope you can hear me, to reflect with us on how can others, regardless of their position, become a positive leader? I mean, you've managed it. You're an entrepreneur. You manage this 2 companies. But how can others start on this path and become positive leaders?
Thanks, Anna. I think from where I sit, one of the things that one can do to become a positive leader, and I'll probably just go back to what Edith has just said. Organizations are complex. If you want to grow in your organization, you have to have the things that I talked about: faith. I talked about mental toughness. I talked about courage. I didn't talk about courage, but I can add courage, boldness, passion, and wisdom. You must, first of all, look at your core values and ask yourself, what do I want out of life? How can I impact? How can I be a fearless influencer in the company that I'm in without taking everything personally. I love the quote of one of the best golfer in the world ever, Tiger Woods. And when he was asked why he's successful, he said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And for me, that's what I subscribe to. I lower my expectations in terms of how people react or respond to me, because being employed is like a marriage. You're very excited, you're very in love, you've done the interview, you've met the right guy, the right woman. But when you go in, you find they, sleep with their mouth open, or they eat with their food coming out. So you have to lower your expectations, but drive yourself, work on your mental toughness so that you're not there to receive, you're actually there to give. I said leadership is about service. So I think for me, that's the way I would conclude. We are having too many expectations out of companies, and people are only human. I cannot be nice to you every day just to please you. You need to have mental toughness, and you also need to, like Edith said, you need to know what you're doing there. If you don't have a vision or a stretch goal for your life, then everything is going to irritate you. But if you know where you're going, you will have to ignore the small things and, just inspire yourself, not expect other people to inspire you. I think for me, that's the way you build a positive leadership aura around yourself. And of course, once you've done that, then you start permeating some sort of charisma. Leaders just look like themselves, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they dress. And I must add, for female leaders, I think dressing is very key. Less is more. No overtness, less is more in terms of, no makeup, just straight lines of clothes. I'm not saying don't wear something bright, but if you want to be looked at as charismatic, you're going for a presentation, less is more, less lipstick, more straight line clothes. Don't be too attractive in terms of what you're wearing. Don't call out yourself too much. Make sure that your language in terms of technical, inspire people with your expertise. And I think that for me has worked over the years. I've been a trainer for the last 19 years, and I've seen that even presentation skills, soft skills are key. But the first thing that people listen to you talk is your technical expertise. How do you become a positive leader? By being knowledgeable in your field, in your sector, or in your particular area. And of course, having general knowledge around the energy value chain, in energy sector value chain. But make sure that key things is knowledge around your technical area, soft skills, and then look sharp. Don't call attention to yourself. Of course, I'm not saying all the time. It depends, on what the occasion is. But those three things will make you look and feel very charismatic and attractive to the audience and to the industry. Thanks.
Thanks. And Yunkabi, I want to rescue from what you just said now, the investment in oneself, right? And the mission, and knowing where you want to go so that you can bring that into, your sphere of action. We're past the hour.
Yes.
But before we say goodbye, I just wanted to ask Edith if you can unmute yourself too. And I want to ask you first for a takeaway message. And I'm looking for a sentence, maximum two, what people should think and take home when they're thinking about positive leadership. Or a tip, if that's what you have. Edith?
I thought Yunkabi was going. The take-home for me, the take-home message for positive leadership is always look for positive strengths instead of always focusing on deficits and gaps. When you start looking for positive things in your teams, then actually everything else falls in place. For the listeners, I can say, do what you love to do. And I'll leave with what Martin Luther King said, the second. If you can sweep the street, sweep it like you've never swept before. And if you will never sweep again. When you get to do that, you'll be noticeable. You will be called upon any assignment that comes up because people know you love what you're doing and you do it without any limits. That's what I can say. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Edith. And Yonkabi, your takeaway message, a couple of sentences.
Okay, so thank you so much, Anna, and the rest of the audience. I think my takeaway message is an African proverb that says that a hunter that is after an elephant doesn't stop to throw stones at birds, which means for the audience, chase your dream. Don't get distracted. Find your niche in the energy sector and go for it. Chase it like you're chasing an elephant and don't listen to the distractions. I thank you all for listening and God bless you very much.
Thank you. And I want to second those thanks from our panelists to our audience. I think you will agree with me that this has been a very rich and inspirational conversation. Before we say goodbye, I just want you to remember that everyone, and we've heard this from both our panelists today, anyone can be a positive leader, regardless of the age or position that one has. I want to thank Power Africa, which is, as you know, a U.S. government-led partnership coordinated by USAID, for the support that they've given to the network and to the series. If you have not started following us on social media, please do. Here you find the platforms for doing so. And do remember that it is possible to engage in a virtual one-on-one career coaching session on the topic of today, which is positive leadership. To do so, you will find a link that Jamie is sharing with you at the moment on the chat box. Go fill in the form and please do that before Tuesday, April 16th. We have limited number of spaces, but if you're interested on the topic, do reach out and maybe we'll be able to support you on your further career development. Just a small reminder, this webinar has been recorded and the recording and the presentations will be made available online soon. And I also want to take a moment personally to thank Maria Preble, who used to be with us behind the scenes, and she's moved to a different career position. I know personally I'll miss her, and I'm pretty sure you in the audience will miss her too. I hope she's listening, and I want to thank you all for your attention and have a great day. Thank you very much.
Anna, God bless you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Jamie. And thank you very much, all the listeners. Have a great day. Keep on being positive.